Hello everybody, and welcome to this year's Ones to Watch live pitch. My name's Chris Shaw. I'm the Executive Chair of the Edinburgh TV Festival, and you're very, very welcome. Ones to Watch is for those who don't know and aren't actually on it, is the festival's senior talent scheme. We have 2 of them, and each year we select around 30 of the most impressive rising stars in the industry to come to Edinburgh to get some training, to meet some of the top people in their industry. This afternoon, it's your chance to watch a select group of them in action, pitching live to Channel 4's Arts Commissioning Editor, John Hay, and myself. And can I say, in my experience, John is not only very insightful, but very gentle and generous. He may put on a rough act today, but he's a sweetie, really. So each of you has just 90 seconds to impress us, and if you win, you get to be one of the make a random acts film for Channel 4. So first, John's going to tell us a little bit more about random acts and what he's looking for today. Over to you, John.
So just first of all, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming with your ideas and to listen to them. Random Acts is our home for the world's best creative short films. And by creative shorts, we sort of mean not mini documentaries about art, but little films that are in themselves art in some sense. So it could be poetry or dance or animation or sort of pure abstract filmmaking or music or any sort of indescribable combination of the above. But the idea is put the stuff direct on screen, you know, sort of use the screen as a canvas. And we commission them from big names. We've had ones from Ai Weiwei and Marina Abramovich and Tiny Temper and Mike Skinner, Kate Tempest and people, and from completely fresh new talent. We've done about 500, but it's a really good time to be pitching because we are about to do a big relaunch of the Strand under the auspices of my colleague Paga Faramand. We are revamping the website so it's more searchable and shareable. We've got a big partnership with the Arts Council to widen access, and we're doing a new TV show that will showcase the best of the random acts. So I've brought you a world exclusive today, which is you are the first people outside the Channel 4 building to see one of the new crop of commissions. And I picked this film because I'm drawn to art that somehow gets involved in the public conversation, has something to say about the world, and I think this is a little film with something to say. So let's watch the tape. Great reaction, thank you.
Yeah, that was great, I must say. Really, well, that's tough bar, isn't it? That's very good.
Right, there's some good stuff here.
So look, there's 8 people pitching for one of these slots. That's what Random Acts looks like. So let's get going. You've got 90 seconds, and we're going to be tough on that. First up, Gemma Branlette.
In a world of digital talent and internet culture, glitch art is an exciting new movement. Glitches are effectively errors or malfunctions in code that produce blurred images, aesthetic blends, and pixelated appearances. Broken masterpieces, if you will. Here are some favourites. Glitches have become increasingly popular with influencers who are tired of flawless imagery. As an outlet for alternative voices, Random Acts is a perfect platform for this artistic expression. The movement is yet to have a TV outing. Let's have Channel 4 pioneer it. Over 3 minutes, Glitches Be Crazy will represent a distorted view of art through the ages. The result will be a dizzying, nightmarish, but hopefully beautiful collection of glitch artwork, which contains the history of art and the future. Just so you can visualize it, I have an example of Peter Monomy's Ships in Distress in a Storm. Back in the 17th century, Monomy used tiny bits of paint to capture a moment of extreme movement. Now, in the 21st century, a digital artist has, through manipulating code, messed with the pixels of the painting, the tiny bits of paint, to create actual motion. It's not the most gorgeous of pieces, but it illustrates what can be done through editing code. The waves now move, the ship begins to sink, and the sky darkens. The accompanying sounds will be those that commissioned musicians feel that the newly distorted paintings evoke, a great opportunity for new talent to have their music heard. We end with a frame of code which prompts viewers to visit the Random Acts website, where they can use a glitch generator to make their own art. Through encouraging others to get involved, the short will fulfill Channel 4's remit to challenge people to see the world differently and try new things. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
I should say very quickly, Gemma is the Indies manager for comedy at BBC Worldwide. Over to you, John.
I thought that was great. I mean, just to put my cards on the table, I sort of think it's all about the idea and then conveying it clearly. And I really understood what it was from that. That was really clear. And it's great to sort of, there was about enough visual aid to understand it without overwhelming me. So, I mean, well pitched. I also like the idea. I sort of think there's something, I like the kind of sense of having found something new. And the ambition to try and capture that and sort of scoop it up. I think that's exciting. So I've just got some. My questions are really about how it would work, you know, and to find out a bit more detail about it. What was your first impression, Chris?
Well, very positive. What I liked was that it had the conceit of looking at the whole history of art and these kind of apparently accidental distortions that you get. I thought that was a really intriguing idea because I feel I'd like to carry on watching what happened all the way through. So I think the concept is very cool. I think you've possibly invented a new way of looking at the history of art in 3 minutes. That's really good too. I guess my only problem was that some of the images actually kind of didn't work for me. I mean, it was quite, you sort of apologised a little bit for your ship and said it was a bit crude and so on. And it was quite ugly for me.
Yeah. But I try and, I don't know, I park my own taste a bit on some of these because I sort of think we should be a broad...
Should be broad-minded.
You know, well, like, not that, but I'm not, sorry, not, that's to, it sounds like a sort of rebuke, but I mean just like, I'm not going to like everything in Random Acts. That's kind of fine, as long as it's interesting and new. So my question is really about, you know, you talked about these manipulated artworks existing in the world, and you're going to go and find a lot of them and put them in a row. But how do you make that into a film? You know, is it just because you could, that could be a slideshow? So how does it turn from a slideshow into a sort of something with a story?
Well, the way I came to this idea was I was thinking about what the history of art would look like in the future. And then, you know, there's this phenomenon called glitch art. So I thought a way of getting people into appreciating this new form was actually to borrow from older pieces, and basically it's a bit of a bit like grabbing their attention. So I imagine it as starting with the Mona Lisa, so arguably the most famous painting. So sort of doing a whistle-stop tour through the different.
Would you let the pictures speak for themselves? Is there any commentary here, or just a music soundtrack?
There's something called glitch hop, which is basically, if you think about the coding of images, there's coding of musical sounds as well. So I would hope to sort of commission musicians to
play distorted music.
Yes,
okay.
to score it.
Right, cool.
So
that you also definitely won't like, by the way.
I'll like some of it. That's all I'm saying.
Similar to the Soundscapes exhibition that was recently at the National Gallery. So I know I appreciate what you say about like being a bit like a slideshow, and I suppose it is a little bit, but more about having showing the history of art, but having a kind of futuristic twist on it.
It's ingenious, and I think you did really, really well.
That's kind of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
So our next contestant is Stephanie Clond, who is an assistant producer at Chalkboard TV. Come up to the stage, Stephanie.
Have you ever considered the time, pain and effort that goes into seemingly effortless locks such as these? The centuries even. Through the unravelling of a weave, we'll discover the history of the hidden realm and of artistry that is black hairdressing. Often, when black hairdressing is at its most effective, it's invisible. The tugging and the hair breaking, it's all done in secret, and the performance of flaunting an epic mane is the norm on our TV screens and magazines. We start with filmed actuality of a woman admiring her new weave in the mirror. The audio, an ancient rural African village juxtaposed with contemporary visuals. The image suddenly reverses at triple speed to reveal the process backwards. The hair being unsewn from the head and covering the tracks beneath. An extreme zoom takes the viewer into the scalp, the roots. The stage is set in a previous era and animation starts to tell the story. The further back in time we travel, the more intricate and impressive the designs. And we zoom into each woman's head, going further and further back in time to reveal surprising and impressive designs from the past. For the animation, I'd like to use the interpolated rotoscope technique employed notably in films such as Scanner Darkly and Waking Life. So every historically animated image will be based on the actuality filmed with the original modern-day hairdresser and client. So the further back in time we go, the more unreal I would like to make it look. In the final seconds of the film, we're jolted back into the present day, zooming out via the different eras that we've travelled through. The woman is left unravelled, natural hair revealed. She puts on her hood and walks backwards out the door.
Go on, you start.
God, I never get pictures this visually literate. I mean, it's amazing. Seriously, but most of the time, my job is like I sit in a room, someone chats to me across a desk. So just to get sort of walked through a film with pictures like that is incredibly helpful, and that's just really brilliant. What I like about this is it sort of feels like it fits the short form. You know, like there's a sort of, you found a nominally simple thing that has layers and layers of questions and sort of narrative and history in it, and you can and your device for it perfectly captures that. So again, it's a bit like Gemma, really. My questions are about, okay, but when you do that bit, what then happens is the voiceover and stuff. We can get to that in a minute. You should give your response, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just thought you know, such a poetic pitch. It was entrancing, you know, and your image selection was excellent too. I know you had a little bit of wobble in the middle, but you recovered brilliantly. I thought the very, very down-home thing about, you know, getting your hair done and the pain and the complexity of it and so on was a really good starting point. And then you added on these different layers of history and science and all the rest of it. And you know what? I really do want to know. I'm much too embarrassed to go and ever ask a young woman, how the hell did you do that? And believe me, there's a lot of great haircuts in where I work, but I've never seen that kind of detail. So I would definitely be a viewer. And I thought it was a really cool pitch. Yeah, agreed. Also, they're drying up. I mean, I once had a nosebleed talking to Jay Hunt about an idea. Like, we all have that. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, right? So the genuine question I'm intrigued by is, okay, you do this clever zoom. I think the rotoscoping is a really nice idea. You get back. Somehow I'm seeing it that far. Then amongst the roots, you take it into the archive. Now, at that point, is the voiceover, is it conveyed entirely visually? How are you telling me all this history and story? So basically, as you zoom into the roots, that's kind of like the set, so it's kind of amongst the strands is the scene. So each time, so you'll go back, say, to the, Black Panther era, so the kind of scene around the roots is of that kind of time, and the hairdresser has that kind of afro hairstyle. Then you zoom into her head, and then it goes back a bit further in time, maybe kind of around slavery time when a lot of people had their head shaved and they weren't able to express themselves, and then you zoom into that, and then that would be kind of pre-slavery where they have these kind of bold, intricate hairstyles. And I think so it's all kind of the stage is kind of the scalp, and everything kind of, is tailored around that. All through imagery? Sorry. No. I just say, for my taste, you're possibly trying to do a little too much. I mean, I think you've got a fantastic conceit. I love the historic stuff. Maybe, and the kind of the actual technique I'm interested in, but when you get into the science of follicles, I feel maybe you've got one layer too many to execute well enough in the time available, but that's just a personal thing. Yeah, I mean, I've got a dozen other questions, but we should move on. But it's great, thank you. Really good, well done. Thank you. Okay. So our next contestant is Xia Desai, who is an assistant producer at Electric Ray.
Hello. The Arcade is a nightmarish animated vision of a British seaside arcade where the games take on dark satirical meanings. Using simple but beautiful animation and evocative sound design, we'll explore issues of racial politics, xenophobia, state surveillance, and inequality in a powerful fever dream of a film. We'll follow a young black brother and sister through the arcade, watching them playing games which skewer modern British society. In an early scene, the young girl steps in front of a carnival mirror, but instead of seeing her own funny reflection, she sees before her a glamorous blonde woman. There will be about 8 games all in all. Each scene will be darker and more surreal than the last. Examples include Establishment Whack-A-Mole, where the heads which pop up are those of Murdoch, Clarkson or Blair. When they're bopped, each grunts pale, male or stale. A version of the duck shooting game where hijabbed women and bearded men parade across the mock waves to be knocked down by water gun. Another example is Tottenham Time Crisis, a video game shoot-'em-up where you play as a policeman, taking aim on a young black man as he jumps out of his car. The animation is set in a seaside resort because, for me, it's a powerful symbol of faded British glory. The film is also an homage to one of my favourite programmes, the animated satire Monkey Dust, which really influenced me as a teenager. I think that its brand of genuinely edgy satire is notably missing from our screens today. Random Acts, with its reputation for pushing boundaries, will be a natural home for the arcade. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, well done. You sort of made the film. I mean, it's kind of, it's amazing. Incredible level of detail. I really like, you were very clear, that was great. I mean, I sort of totally understand it, and I like the sort of mischief. You know, the unofficial motto of Channel 4 used to be make trouble, do it first, inspire change, and this has definitely got a bit of the make trouble about it. And I think, I mean, I was going to ask you questions about how, but I sort of can see how from the visual materials, so that appeals to me. I suppose my one question would be, can you take the satire a notch cleverer? You know, because there's just a sort of, you want to, you know, if you're going to do something as visually involved and as interesting as this, to then sort of end up with the usual suspects and pale males, okay, fine, I sort of know that point. You could push it a notch, I think, but I think it's a really smart idea.
I also think it's a great idea. I did get a little whiff of Dismal Land in there.
So, I mean,
that's really bad luck, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's been copying you. You should go out and get that guy and sue the bastard. But actually, this is really clever, and you know, you had a great set of references and mood boards there. It was a little bit confusing because there were so many different visual styles there that I kind of sort of got slightly lost. At one point, I felt a bit of Beavis and Butthead there, actually.
Yeah, there's all sorts.
But you know, the idea is a cool idea, no doubt about it. Again, I'd just simply say 8 targets, 8 complicated sort of concepts that you want to put across in a very short period of time. That's quite ambitious. You know, maybe 1, 2, or 3 of those would be sufficient, but that's my only criticism.
Okay. Who are you going to? I mean, it's a question I should really ask to everyone, but there's probably not time to do it. But like, who are you going to collaborate with? Because this relies on a lot of other skills, doesn't it?
So, I mean, I'm not an animator myself. I've started reaching out to people who, you know, whose work I like, illustrators and animators. This is a friend of mine who did it as a favour. But
nice friend.
Yeah, really great friend, and a really great favour. But I have started speaking to people. I mean, who are interested. I've also tried to cost it out a bit, but animators tell me it's like, how long is a piece of string? So it's something that I'd need to look into further if the commission got away.
Well, congrats just for getting people together and volunteers, because that's part of the task, you know, finding talent, isn't it?
Definitely,
you know,
especially
when you're collaborating like that. So well done.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's really impressive.
Thank you very much. Right, next up is Andy Heyward, who is a senior video editor at Vice News. Hi Andy.
So that was a short show reel showcasing the work of Dickie Bowe, who's an award-winning theatre performer and drag artist. What I want to do is take Dickie's the drag tradition of miming and lip syncing, and I want to take this and move away from the sort of more staid videos he's done there and shoot it in a new, interesting way. Basically, I want to create a soundscape. I want to use all his influences, archive, sound, music, and I want to create a soundscape which is built up of a number of tracks which we play back in an order Dickie's unaware of, and he will have to respond to them, react to them, shout out against them, sync with them, drop out of sync with them. We're going to shoot it all on a M10 Movi rig, which is a camera stabilizer, which allows you to hold on to, get shots you would only otherwise be able to get on a steady cam or with a jib arm, and really allow him to perform and giving a lot of freedom to do so. He will be a vehicle for a collection of voices, noise, sound, music from history. He will become a playback prophet.
Thank you.
Yeah, bold, but good call, I think, to just open with him, because it's like, if he's good, it's good, and if he's not good, it's not good. So, but I was really impressed by him, and I'm intrigued by the idea. What I don't understand is, are you saying you're going to throw a soundtrack at him that he doesn't know and he's got to react to it? Is it sort of test for him, is it? No, that's not. Yeah. That's not. It's just a sort of further question. It's not a criticism. But is he going to sort of be bouncing off something that he doesn't know, or are we going to showcase his virtuosity with something he's prepared? What's the?
It will be sort of a mixture of both, I think. I mean, what I wanted to do is just break away from it being as rigid as it is, and obviously you've got something about with it being on video that it's kind of not as impressive maybe as in the room. So what I wanted to do was kind of, I've got a couple of friends who are kind of musicians and could sort of build something out, take all the sort of interests he has, all the different sources he has, stuff that might be happy, testimonials, sad things, music, noise, and basically he will know the individual tracks. They will be laid down and he can obviously rehearse to those, but then he won't know how they're played to him, what order they'll come at him, whether we'll stop them, skip to another track, and then he can get to respond to that. So he can drop out of sync with them, jump back into sync with them. You know, if he wants to shout out with his own voice and like rail against them, he can do that as well. So it was just to kind of inject like a spontaneity, really challenge him as a performer and just try and create something really interesting.
That's interesting.
It's really bold. Is it sort of music first and imagery second, or because this is essentially a kind of sounds like an audio performance that's been filmed in a
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of both, really. I mean, it will be about the audio, and it will be about, you know, speaking to Dickie and just trying to pull out of everything he really likes and really enjoys, as well as trying to just have a real juxtaposition of tones, so that you sort of keep the viewer guessing, really. So it'll be a big combination of both, as well as the cutting, because, you know, he has such a great sort of sense of costume, and I would, you know, I'd run it a few times, change different costumes, cut together, obviously keeping the artist.
This is, and he's up for this, I take it. You're fully collaborating
I know,
on
he's
this.
on board with it. And
fine, okay,
it,
and he doesnn't mind having all this stuff thrown at him.
No, he said it'd be a challenge, but he was like sort of excited.
Interesting. All right.
And where is he when this is out? I mean, you've told me what the camera is, but not where you're shooting it.
I mean, I think to some degree, like, if it's going to work with the sort of costumes, it's going to, the space, I don't, it should be nicely lit, but I don't know how busy it should be, because, you know, the visual and the audio is already so much for your senses. In a way, the space, I think, might be quite neutral, and it'll just be, you know, very focused on the performer, really. Yes. I think it's great. I mean, it's interesting. It raises a question about pitching in general, which is that sort of sometimes, and I think it was a really good pitch, and I'm interested in the idea, but there's a temptation to say what you're doing rather than what I'm seeing, if you know what I mean. So, and I think the trick often is to sort of put yourself on the sofa and say, right, okay, never mind how I do it. Here's what's going to come across to you. So, but I mean, I get it now, and I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Pure performance proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're halfway now. Next up, Debbie Lowe's, a directing assistant producer at the BBC.
Hi.
Our experience of the world is saturated by images. Some are created by nature, some curated by companies, others reimagined by painters and photographers. The problem is, a painting of a tree isn't only a tree. It is wisdom, it is history, and it is nature. Can we understand a form just in and of itself and not insist on associating it with something else? London-based painter Rich Reed is trying to invent a new language of form independent of images, freeing the work from the burden of associations. I want to put Rich's vision on screen. Using collage, digital effects and time-lapse, I want to see him integrate into and reject existing images, such as pulling the plug on a beach in a magazine advert, before he disappears into a vast digital network of artistic thought that stretches before him, back to the dawn of man, where he forges a connection and himself becomes a blue node in the network. On a close-up of Rich's blue face, the camera zooms into his ear through a tirade of images in his mind, for turning to see the world through his eyes, a world full of colour, line and shapes. The camera tracks out of his eyes to find a blank canvas in front of him. He blinks and the canvas becomes the screen itself. Rich starts to construct. Weight and form are active and obvious as time-lapse builds the painting at a pulsating and variable speed. Some paint is thick, visceral and clumps in its space. Other paint, thin and fast, drips and falls. When the screen is full, there is a few seconds of peace as we look at the work. A new way of looking, where we see the painting only for itself, not for its attachments in the world. This is Rich Reed's new language.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I love the sort of ambition and the passion, right? And the kind of, you sound like you believe in it. You know, that always goes a long way, don't you think, when someone's pitching to you? God, it's a sort of, they're so unlike each other, these ideas. It's kind of hard to sort of judge them sometimes. But I think there's something really interesting about trying to do sort of pure formalism like this on screen. I've got questions about what lies behind it, but
No, I mean, I thought your references were beautiful and very, very well chosen. And I feel this, of all the pictures we've heard, this is the sort of purest, if you like, art form of its own in its own right. And yes, you delivered it with real conviction, which I loved. I was sort of taken on a kind of mental journey through these visual images, and I thought I'd like to go on it. I definitely would. So well done.
Yeah, no, well done. So my question would be, I think I get how it ends, right? I don't. When you started, I thought, okay, this is like the theory of the film rather than the film, and I always want to sort of think, okay, right, the film starts, what happens? You know, like what am I going to see? So, are you going to sort of explain what he's about in the film, or does it just begin with a man walking down a beach, pulling the plug, going through an ear, etc., etc.?
No, I don't think so. My hope would be, as the painting does, that it explains it in and of itself through the images. But I do think for an ending, my thought was, because he's not actually invented this language yet, it's an attempt to do so, and I think there's still room to grow. So what I'd like in the final screen is for him to cut a hole in the canvas and look down the lens and walk away, so you see him sort of going on to the next project. So it doesn't end on the painting, actually. So
it's interesting you call it a language rather than a sort of artwork or an installation, because to me, what you've described here is you know, a sort of series of visual references that don't obviously connect, but and certainly don't end up somewhere with very limited relationship to the real world where they start, which I find quite exciting. But I don't understand that as a language as such. But maybe I'm being a bit.
I guess
literal.
It's a language of form, so not a language using words, but a language using form and expression.
So you're trying to tell me a story here as well as entice my eyes. Yes.
The work becomes, the meaning of the work becomes inherent within it rather than adherent attached to it.
And this is an incredibly reductive question, right? But what is the meaning of the work in your view? Is it a sort of, what do you want people to come away with?
The meaning of the work to me is that you can enjoy a painting in and of itself. You needn't try and think beyond it. You should just enjoy it for as it is in itself. And so hopefully it quietens you and it gives you time to reflect just on the work rather than the world.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Good.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much.
You didn't even need an introduction. It's Samuel Parma, development researcher at 2-4.
When I go to the windmill with the other Daisy boys, I like to bring an extra lamp for the girls. Yes, lovely treat at the seaside, thank you. Oh, that's a big one. Your little girl is really cute. It's a pity they can't stay that young and cute forever. Are you guys following this? No, that's understandable. Chris, John, you guys following this? Are you confused? Confused. Because that's going to happen to 1 in 6 of us. Confused, disorientated, unable to find the right words. These are all devastating symptoms of dementia. Just say the word. This short film will follow one young spoken word poet creating a poem out of the jumbled words of someone with dementia. Through the poet, the patient will be heard. Why should we care if we're not in line to get dementia? Because officially, dementia is Britain's most feared disease, and 52% of us will see a close friend or family member gradually fade away. I did. Through this film, we have the chance to create something meaningful out of something heartbreaking. This is Just Say the Word. Thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a feature on the stage if the telly doesn't work. I mean, it's really impressive. I love the fact you want to do something about something that matters. You know, it's a bit like the Holly McNish thing that we were watching at the beginning. It would be a film with something to say, so that's exciting. And your evident passion, again, that sort of goes a long way. You know, you've piqued my curiosity, and I now want to know a lot about like what it is. As in, what do I see? What happens in the course of the filming? But I mean, you know, you've got me interested, so that I think that's a very effective pitch.
Great, it's a good start. So basically, how I see this working, I would love to interview some consenting dementia patients, and I would like to transcribe it. I would like to sign up a very young, rising star in the spoken poetry circuit. There are lots. I think in my treatment I mentioned Tommy Sissons, Justina Cahind. At the top we mentioned Kate Tempest. And I'd like to get them to use their ability to create verse, to deliver words with the content of someone with dementia, with that transcription. So that's what you're going to hear. That's going to form the spine of what we see. What we see, I want to put them in a house, and I want to follow their journey as they try to escape it. So with the poem itself, describing someone's experiences of having dementia, we will see them trying to escape. Every time there is a mistake, it is recited. Every time there is a slip in time, it is recited. And that will see them jump cutting through the rooms of the house. The televisual experience is going to be confusing. It could be quite hard to follow, but at the end, what you're going to have is some sentiments with some sense of cohesion that's held together through someone who has a gift for performance, someone who has a gift for creating poetry out of something that is quite inspiring. And at the end, hopefully, what this does is get you to think, to leave you with a feeling, whether it's sadness, whether it's fear, whether you find the sentiments funny. Some people in this room laughed when I asked if they were confused. Dementia can be funny before you start to think about, actually, it's terrifying, 52%.
Could I just ask, when you say they are going to, are you talking about the spoken word artists or people with dementia? Sorry to be thick.
The spoken word artists.
All right.
Yes, in the film, we are following them.
So this won't actually feature people with dementia?
No, just what they're saying.
Understood. Yeah. Sorry, just wanted to clear that up.
So you interview them.
Yep.
The artist works with those words like Simon Armitage and Brian Hill films did, or do. And then you then follow the artist through a house, sort of. Is that the thought?
Yeah. So every time there is a slip in the cohesion of the conversation, of the transcripts, that will be represented by a jump cut. And it's interesting because I don't know if anyone here has had a conversation with someone who's had dementia, but that happens quite a lot. They'll be talking to you, they'll be in the moment, they'll be lucid, then they'll be back in the 50s. Then they'll be talking about someone you don't even know. Then they'll think you're someone completely different. And that for you is quite confusing. So sort of manifesting that experience through kind of visual art, through editing, through clever sound cuts, in video poetry and spoken word poetry, I think can relay those types of experiences for the viewer.
So the form sort of mirrors the content.
I think it's very, very clever, and I love the fact that it's prompted by personal experience, which I think is always a great starting point for any TV, long or short form. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now...
Just can I interrupt? it showcases a sort of risky but effective pitching strategy, I think, which is to basically do a pre-title and then you go like, OK, go on, tell me more then, and then you bought yourself another 90 seconds, basically.
Yeah. And confronting the commissioners, like asking them a question before they've opened their mouths, that's high stakes but can be effective. I did actually answer you, which slightly surprised you, I think. So Stephen Perring next, please, who's a freelance assistant.
Cool. So I don't have much time, so I thought I'd jump right in and give you a sense of what the short might look like. It'll open, if it works, with a close shot of a veteran telling his experiences of the Second World War. The camera, on a dolly, will slowly track backwards as the veteran's words are changed and distorted. We'll project archive, both real and created onto the veteran's face, a bit like the titles of True Detective. Their words will be slowly stolen by the archive. There we are, it is there. And soon even this will be auto-tuned and remixed to say different things. Eventually, our veteran will disappear, replaced by dancers, young people at recitals, teachers, politicians, etc. The short will reach a crescendo and collapse into darkness before revealing our veteran alone in their empty room. The short is designed to show how our experiences and words are no longer ours once we communicate them, as well as how history can be twisted and changed. For instance, we might take our veterans' experience of the Second World War and turn it into internet commentators calling each other Hitler. The catchy autotune will make the short memorable and rewatchable, whilst also highlighting the fact that the bit we remember aren't the original words. It seems like you can't turn on the TV these days without there being some programme about a war on, and yet it never seems like the men and women in those programmes truly own their own stories. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
See, that's the opposite, but just as effective. I mean, just you're in a relaxed way telling me what your thing is. And I find both sort of powerful ways of conveying the idea. I love that you've picked such an uncool subject, if you know what I mean. But do you know what I mean? I get a lot of pictures about, incredibly attractive young people dancing without many clothes on, right? And you think, OK, well, that's like sort of what you expect from a sort of wannabe cool art strand. But then there's to go at history, memory, veteran stories, and apply creativity to that kind of territory. I think it's interesting. And thinking as I do about the range of stuff that we do and not trying to be too one note, it appeals.
I also, what really chimed with me was your final comment, where there's so much testimony on television, both about contemporary and older subjects, and yet however it's shot, they very rarely seem to sort of own it in the way that you say, and this is kind of, in a sense, a tribute to these individuals, a more artistic and personal tribute, which I like very much. Again, I got a little bit confused about the ultimate purpose, other than this is to profile individuals, is it? Or is it
not at all, no.
Go on, then.
It's basically to show, to give a sense of the fact that when you watch another documentary, when you hear those recitals, actually what you're hearing or what you're told isn't necessarily where it's come from. Weirdly, I was talking to one of the people from Wall to Wall, and they were talking about how the voice that keeps getting twisted and changed to mean different things from what it was originally.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. I want to showcase the fact that actually the original words, and then come the end, what you've forgotten and what you remember isn't the original person who comes back right at the end. That's the idea behind it. It's not about the veteran, it's about the way everybody's words are distorted and changed.
Okay, so that's quite an ambitious thought.
Who do you think you need to work with? I mean, which bits of this can you do, and which bits of this you can lean on other people for?
I mean, a lot of it I can sort of do myself. Obviously, I can't be a veteran.
Makeup?
I could try. I think what we try and do is we do a lot of it through editing, so I'd have to get a really good editor, and I quite like, we'd have to have somebody who can design, maybe sort of theatre designs. I've got quite a few friends who work in it, to work with the lighting, and we'd shoot the same track backwards multiple times and cut between them to do it. I've already talked to a couple of veterans who I've worked with before, because I make history shows, so there's a couple who I think would be really great. And then it would be a case of finding the right person to just sort of do the audio side of it. And the ideal person would be someone like the Gregory Brothers, who remix the Kimmy Schmidt theme tune, and they do loads of Songify the News, if you know YouTube stuff. I have reached out to them, but I haven't heard back. But there are lots of sort of UK DJs and auto-tuners who can do that. And I think it's important that it's not professionally done that it kind of feels slightly rougher.
Yeah.
Again, I think it carries all the conviction of someone who you've got something, you know, you want to get off your chest, don't you? And that's a pretty nice way of doing it. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks.
This is Zarah, who is a freelance producer as well.
So this random act is based on a spoken word artist whose poem Home means more to me and speaks more to me about British Muslim identity than any mainstream media ever really has. Let's have a listen.
I don't recall the hearing verse in the Quran. Brother, would you do the same if you were born in Pakistan? But I weren't born in Pakistan. I was born here. I was formed here.
So that's Xia Ahmed. He is London born and bred. He has Pakistani and Muslim heritage. In Home, he questions the idea of belonging and the stereotypes that many British Muslim young people face today. In this film, what we'll hear is Xia's voice narrating the poem, and we'll see him in his home, the home that he grew up in. The minutiae of everything in his house will form the tapestry of his identity, the core of who he is, from close-ups of the British flagged placemats in his living room to close-ups of the Quran sitting next to the fruit bowl in the kitchen. This film will say to us that identity is complex, it's layered, it's a messy household. At the end of the scene, we'll see Xia leaving his house, and he'll be questioned by some Muslim boys handing out Islamic leaflets. They question his identity and the earring he's wearing, but Xia's not bothered by this. And at this point, neither are we, because we know Xia better than the judgment strangers cast on the street. Here we go.
No, I'm nervous.
Whoa.
Yeah, come on, give me a break. I was about to say something nice about it. I think it's, like, I love the fact you've found someone you believe in. That's, I mean, you know, we've had one other like this. I think that's an interesting way of going about doing a random act. There's a simplicity and a purity to the idea that I can see working. Again, my questions are about execution, really, but I think I'd love to know, but also, I mean, the more of it depends very much on the poem, right? For me, I think it's a really strong, simple idea that has layers of depth and complexity, a little bit like the weave idea. Sort of, you know, there's something. If you for a 3-minute short, that's a very powerful model. Something that's superficially simple and has layers in it. So congratulations.
Yeah, I also like the bringing together of a sort of domestic language of the household and really basic things like the way different people store their cereal. I'm quite interested in that. And a big, hot sort of social topic about identity, which is obviously really, really important in Britain at the moment. I've got a little question. That little bit of audio we heard right at the front, was that part of his poem?
Yeah.
But just a part of it, or was that the poem?
No,
Because I thought it was interesting, but it didn't quite chime with the inspiration that you spoke of, because it was just a small piece of it.
Yeah, it was actually the very sort of last scene of the poem.
Oh, I see.
Because when he enters
his conclusions.
Exactly,
yeah, right,
yeah,
okay.
because that's the dialogue in the poem that he enters, he sees the Muslim boys and they question the earring in his ear. The poem is actually sort of very much lines of stereotypes, stereotypical views of him. But what I want to kind of show in this is that stereotypes are sort of untold stories, and they sort of have a basis somewhere, but they're things that also have so many different layers to them. So, like, he'll say things like, "I am cardamom, I am cinnamon, I am Bollywood season at Channel 4 at 2 in the morning." Sorry, I don't want to offend you. but so with that, I want to be able to film Xia in his home doing the everyday, probably with a steady cam or a glide cam, and then just use lots of clever shots of the different minutiae.
Yeah, it's interesting. The confrontation that you refer to, is that reenacted with sort of actors, presumably,
Yes.
or is it going to be quite real? Is it going to be scary?
I think it's not going to be violent,
Okay.
but I'm just exactly...
Name calling or?
No, what it will be is it's the dialogue in the poem. It's Xia's second part of the poem, so it's really quite straightforward. Like, he's got a line like, you know, the boys sort of stop him and say, "Brother, why are you wearing an earring?" And then he responds. So it's basically following, because he did the poem in the second part. He did it differently, like a dialogue. So I just wanted to reenact that.
Interesting.
Great. I think we're short of time, aren't we? Is that right?
That was really good. Well
I've got
done.
one more question. Okay, good.
Oh, he's got
okay, I'd like to ask a question, which is, tell me a bit about what it's going to look like. You know, the kind of the look and feel. Have you got any? Will it be like those photographs? Are you going to go for something that's sort of grubby and real like that?
I do want to go for something very homely and quite. I want the colours to look quite dense, and I want the audience to feel like very intimate and at home with him, instead of making it sort of really bright. I just want to sort of go for sort of denser colours.
Great, that's helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
It's rare that you get such an intense burst of ingenuity and creativity in one short spell of time. That's fantastic. Thank you, everyone. And not just to you finalists on the shortlist, as it were, but to everyone who put in a proposal. I know there was a lot more of you, and I know it was a shame that we had to cut it down to 8, but time demanded that.
Yeah, I wanted to say that too. So the strength and depth is incredibly impressive, and so, I mean, sorry to all of those who didn't make the final 8 on stage, but there were a lot of good ideas out there, and I sort of feel if you're the future of TV, I feel pretty optimistic about it. So
what a range from you know, really topical issues around race and identity through to completely abstract thoughts about art and form and so on, and haircuts, and you know, it's brilliant. All life was there. So thank you, really, it was terrific. So listen, what we're going to do now is go off into a little dark room somewhere and chat about it privately, and then we're going to announce the winner later today in about 90 minutes actually. The Edinburgh TV Awards take place in the main Pentland auditorium, and there's loads of Channel of the Year, Indie of the Year. There's also going to be this, so one of you is going to have to come up, sorry, and receive a prize, you know, the recognition of the entire festival, pretty much. So we're going to take a little bit of time to think about it, because it's going to be tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, actually.
Yeah. So listen, John, you had a last word, I believe.
I just wanted to say thanks, really. I mean, I wish that everyone who came and pitched to us put as much effort into their pitches as that. I mean, that's no disrespect, but it's just an incredibly... You've really, really thought it through and worked at it, and like you could see that you've sort of gone beyond your first version of the idea and worried away at it. I just think it's really impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I pitch for a living, and I learned some stuff today, so thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, big round of applause for our finalists.
Yeah, thanks a lot.